Hey, thank you for checking out Palladio. I thought I'd show you a quick behind the scenes tour of how the product works and what it could be used for. As you can tell at the minute, I don't exactly have a full-fledged marketing site with features, pages, and everything set up. So this video will do for now. Okay, so what Palladio is, just to kind of sum it all up in a nutshell, is it's a bit like imagine Webflow for email marketing. So you can use Palladio to visually set up not only the email templates that you can then load into a platform like Convertkit, but you can also use it to create widgets. And widgets I'll get into in a bit more detail in a second. But the easiest way to think of them is things you can drop within any email that you're sending that are more than just rich text. So for example, maybe you want to have a big kind of like standout box with a photo on the right, and then on the left you have a testimonial, and you want it kind of consistently formatted. So anytime you want to put a testimonial in an email, you just kind of drop this in and you say, here's the name of the person, here's the quote, here's their photo. That's kind of what a widget is. And you can go wild with widgets and do things like click to tweets or reader question areas or really anything you want. And Palladio supports you building it all. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to walk you through creating a basic template in Palladio, and we're going to add a widget to it. And then what we'll do is we'll load it into Convertkit, and you can see how it all works. Okay, so this is a brand new Palladio account I've just logged into. One thing that I've tried to do is I've tried to include a number of sample templates that you can use use and modify and adapt to make your own. And then it just kind of avoids needing to, it helps you avoid needing to kind of start from scratch. But I'm actually going to ignore all the built-in templates and just create a basic template that we'll work with. So I'm going to call this demo template. And as you can see, it's pretty straightforward and minimal. Okay, so here's my template. And again, if you've ever used a platform like a page builder or something like Webflow, it should be fairly similar to what you're used to. So if I wanted to say add a an image, I can just drag that out and then I can upload the image over here. Or if I wanted to put a 2-column layout and then put something like an image on the right, left, I can do all that through dragging and dropping, and then I can configure everything on the right. So so we have an example to work with. What I'm going to do in this template is I'm going to make this box here, this area right here, we're going to give it a drop shadow. So I'm going to choose a large shadow, and I'm going to make the background color, let's give it a kind of like a, I don't know, a light blue background color. So that'll be that. And background color is going to be Happy Zoo. So now we have this kind of light blue background color for this content area. And I can go and I can say, like, let's make the padding on the top be really tall. Same for the bottom. And maybe we want to have the text be inset a little more. So let's do 30 on each side. So you can see, like, if you've used Convertkit templates in the past, they're pretty limited. You can't do much in terms of like changing basic typography or colors. With this, you can change anything you want, and it will compile down email compliant HTML, which is a bit different than usual HTML. Okay, so to give you a practical example of where Palladio would make sense to use, let's say we want to have a sponsored newsletter template. So we have a newsletter, and eventually or occasionally we have a company who comes around and sponsors an issue. So what we want to do is we want to put under the logo up here, we want to have a little sponsored by so-and-so. And then maybe after the email, before the footer, we'll do the same thing. We'll have a bigger kind of box where we call out the sponsor. So one thing that Palladio allows you to do, which is pretty unique, is you can create metadata that you can attach to any email you want. So in this example, not every email we send is going to be sponsored. So if it's not sponsored, we don't want to show anything below the logo. We don't want to have that box below the content. We want it to look like what it looks like here. But if it is sponsored, then we want to show all that. So what you can do is you can add what are called slots to your emails, which allow you to define any extra data you want that is beyond the content of that email. So hopefully that makes a bit of sense. So I'm going to add a slot, and we're going to call this the sponsor name, which is just text. And let's just default it to Convertkit just for previewing sake. We'll have sponsor URL, which is going to go to convertkit.com. And then we'll have the sponsor image. And let's just grab the the logo for Convertkit here. We'll take this PNG, we'll just grab that, and then we'll paste this in here. Okay, so I've set up these slots. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to say right below this logo, I'm going to add an if else. Actually, I'm just going to do an if. Do an if under here. That is going to say when it defaults to saying if the subscribers tags contains customer, which you could use this if you wanted to only show content in an email to customers. But in this case, we're going to go down and say if the name is set. So if we've defined a sponsor for this email, then we'll show this area here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a 2-column here, and I'm going to put this text over here. There we go. And I'm going to put an image here. So what we're going to have, and I'm not going to spend too much time cleaning this up, and maybe let's remove the padding here, but this isn't going to be the final design. But we're going to put in here this will be the logo, and then we'll say something like sponsored by Convertkit. And then this will show if there's a sponsor set. So to do this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click this image here, and the image URL, which defaults to this, I'm actually going to make sponsor image, which is going to pull from that slot I've defined, right? So here we have the sponsor image, and this is just Liquid. So if you're not familiar with Liquid, it's the tool or the platform, technology that ConvertKit uses under the hood to do email personalization. Let's make the logo a bit smaller. And and then we'll put here, because ConvertKit's not going to be the sponsor every time, put sponsor name. Now it uses the default we've set up. I'm going to select this text, I'm going to link to sponsor URL. And there we go. So now, assuming we have a sponsor set up, it will say sponsored by ConvertKit with a link to ConvertKit. Cool. And then what I would do is I'd do the same thing down here, where after this, let's make something with a margin at the bottom of a bit. Let's make this a gray box let's give it some rounded corners. And then we're just going to do the same kind of thing. I'm actually just going to take this whole condition right here. Actually, I'm going to take this, this 2-column thing, and duplicate that. And then I'm going to grab this, and let's just drag the whole thing down into here. So now we have it down here also. I want to obviously make this text white. So let's add a white color. Choose a color, make this like a lighter, I'll do like a light gray actually. So text, let's make that light gray color. And that looks fine. Now all I need to do is just make it so this container here is only going to be shown if the sponsor name is set. So I'm going to add another show if. Put this. Let's put it right below that. So when sponsor name is specified, which is what we want, I grab this whole box, drag it into here, drag it into here. There we go. Get rid of this. And let's just get rid of the padding. And there we go. Now we have, again, a thing that says, if the sponsor set, we're going to show this. Otherwise, we will not show that. So now what we've done is we've got what we need, which is a thing at the top, which will show the sponsor's logo and sponsored by ConvertKit, and then also repeat it down to the bottom. And you can go wild with this, and you can maybe add another slot variable that's like a description, like, hey, I love ConvertKit, blah, 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 blah. And maybe you show that down here. Let's actually just do that real quick. So I'm going to add a sponsor call out. Let's make it a rich text area. So ConvertKit is great. I use them check them out. Okay. So what I then do is down here where I have this text, I do a new line, sponsor call out, and now we've got that. So now we've got what we need. Going to click save. So we're good here. And now we can actually load this into Convertkit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click add to Convertkit. And this is going to walk me through everything I need to do. So first step is to get the compiled. So what Palladio has done is it created all this HTML that has all this liquid stuff already written for you. So it creates all the liquid content you need, all the liquid templating stuff you need, all the compliant HTML you need, and prepares it for Convertkit, which is what it just did. So I'm going to click this button. That means it's going to copy now what you see on my screen to my clipboard. And now it's going to walk me through going into Convertkit and creating a new template and basically how to do it all. So I'm going to do that. I don't need to read the instructions. I've done this many times. So I'm going to go to send email templates. I'm going to click new email template. I'm going to go down and click custom HTML. And I'm going to say demo April 25th, and then just paste this in. Click save. And now we have the Palladio created email template ready to go. So if I were to go in and create a new broadcast using that template, so I'm going to do that and say sponsored email. Let's find that demo template. If I preview this, you're going to see it doesn't actually have anything about the sponsor, which makes sense because I didn't actually include any metadata about that sponsor yet, have I? But if I go in here and start writing, usual thing you would expect in terms of how to create email content. But how do we then add sponsor information? Because again, we want this email to be sponsored by Convertkit. Maybe next week it's sponsored by Teachable, the following week by someone else. How do we do that? So how we'll do that is we'll go back to Palladio, and let's say we want to create, let me just finish this off and tell it that we've done this, right? Like, so now it's all in there. It'll show you that this version right here is synced into Convertkit. Should you start making changes here, obviously that's going to be pushed up to Convertkit because at the minute, Convertkit doesn't have any sort of API that lets us store email templates. They're working on that, but it's not yet. So Palladio will kind of call out and say, hey, this is not in sync with Convertkit, but for the moment it is. But let's say we want to use this email now in Convertkit. So I'm going to click use an email. And here's where things get fun. So I'm going to make this week, we're going to be sponsored by Teachable, which is teachable.com. Just grab the Teachable logo somewhere. That looks fine. I want one that's transparent. There we go. Okay, so copy image address. Fine. I'm going to put this picture there and then say Teachable is such a great way to teach courses or something like that. You click next. This is going to show you what it'll look like. So you can just kind of have an idea of what the final email will look like in Convertkit. I probably wouldn't use this logo. I'd clean it all up. But again, for demo, this is probably fine. Looks good. I'm going to click this button now. Now I'm going to click this copy button and go into Convertkit. Select all that content, that fake content here, paste this in, and now when I click preview, now we have all this, the metadata is now attached. So the way we're doing this is it's a lot of complicated liquid stuff to make Convertkit do what we need it to do. But Palladio handles it all for you. So what you would do now is, this is now where you'd go and you'd write your weekly email. You'd go and do your usual, like, bold text, add images. Your usual stuff would just then go under this. And now when you click preview, you'll see here's your email. And now we have the sponsored by Teachable logo thing at the top, and so on. And if I want to get rid of this, I would just take this content here, this liquid content, put it on my clipboard because I want to bring it back, click delete. And now when I preview it, you can see there's no sponsored by stuff anywhere. So what Palladio has done is it's created an email that we can attach data, like in this case, the sponsor name to, and sponsor image and all that kind of stuff. And it will make it so if that data is set, we've said, show this thing, show this picture under our logo. And you can obviously see how you could go wild with this and use it for things like showing a testimonial or showing, whatever you want that would make sense for you. But yeah, this could be used for this. Let's say you want to have like a blog post URL that's associated with this email, and you want to have at the top like view on my website, and you want that to be dynamic. And obviously that's kind of outside of the email or the contents of the email. That's in the navigation or the header. You could use Palladio to do that. Some people have done this for like if there's a featured podcast episode they want to point people to, and that's again outside of the usual email box and down by the footer, or maybe somewhere highlighted that's outside of the usual place. You can use Palladio to do that with this slot technology that it gives you. Anyway, that's how it all works. It's a really easy to use tool that walks you through everything. And the end result at the minute is what you see on the screen, which isn't the prettiest in Convertkit, but it works. It does what you need, and it walks you through it all and puts on your clipboard and says, just paste this in and you'll be good to go. So I've tried to design it to be really as simple to use as possible. If you're intimidated by Liquid, don't worry about it. It writes 100% of the Liquid for you. So if you want personalized emails, if you want to have a little area that shows up if they're a customer, and maybe if they're not a customer, something else shows up, it's all really, really simple to do with Palladio.